Hey everybody, welcome back to my channel. This is Stephanie Dree, trans woman if you didn't know. And today we're comparing TNT to TNN. And if you're scratching your head saying, what the fuck are those letters? TNT refers to Turner Network Television. TNN stands for the Nashville Network. Now, if you're wondering what the fuck those are, because you're a young person who has Netflix and Max and Disney Plus, these are, or were, television cable networks that got their start in the 80s, reached their peak in the 90s, and took very different paths in the 2000s. TNT technically is still in operation. They're still broadcasting shows, and they're still a network. They are not what they were when they launched. When they launched, they were essentially like USA and TBS. They were and WGN. They were basically a superstation, or the equivalent of a superstation. In other words, they were just another TBS. That's that's all they were. You had TBS, and then you had basically TBS2, but instead of calling it TBS2, they called it TNT. But it was the same thing. Just reruns of other shows. Until they got a big enough following to make their own shows. Now, very early on, TBS and TNT took different approaches. TBS, as I've already repeatedly mentioned, veered into comedy, and TNT went straight into drama. Basically adopting the slogan, something to the effect of, "We know drama," or something like that. TNT, like TBS, rose to prominence in the 1990s. Most notably with shows like The Closer and The New Adventures, or Lois and Clark, The New Adventures of Superman, and a handful of others. Now, these were not TNT originals. These were shows that aired elsewhere that TNT rebroadcast. But this was like the big staples of their network. Eventually, as the 90s would progress, they'd pick up additional drama-type shows. And somewhere along the line, because they had their origins, as I said, as a superstation, superstations would broadcast a whole bunch of shit. Game shows, news, sitcoms, reruns, action shows, dramas, mysteries, talk shows, and sports. TNT would also air all of this other shit too, until they eventually settled on drama being their thing. But because they did air sports, as does TBS, by the way, they eventually settled on this myth that sports equals drama. No, but maybe? Needless to say, basketball became a big part of their programming. Like a huge part of their programming. And so today, TNT is more known as the other network that plays basketball games than it is anything else. Because today, that's basically all it is. Because any random show that they're airing randomly during the day, in whatever order they're playing the episodes, intercut with nobody's watching. Because nobody's paying money to sit and watch shows out of order with commercials when they can binge them correctly on streaming services. So the only thing people watch today on TNT is the basketball. And that's it. It's basically the basketball network. And sometimes other stuff. They have had other big shows to various levels and degrees of success. But nothing that they've produced themselves that what I would classify as a TNT original that left a mark on the zeitgeist. Literally nothing. They're the basketball network. And they've basically been the basketball network since about 1997. Which, if you're not counting, is a long fucking time ago. Alright, but what about TNN? I've never heard of TNN, you say. The Nashville Network? One random city in the middle of the Southern Bible Belt in the U.S. of America had its own TV national cable broadcast network? Give me a fucking break, you say. Because, yeah, WGN was a superstation based in Chicago, but it wasn't the Chicago network. And TBS was a superstation based in Atlanta, Georgia, but it wasn't the Atlanta, Georgia network. Well, outside of baseball season, but that's another story for another day. But the Nashville network, what the fuck? You probably don't remember the Nashville network for good reason. Reason number one, it didn't last long, technically. And I have to put a asterisk on the technically, because it kind of sort of did, in a kind of sort of different way than you know. But the other reason you don't remember the Nashville network is because of their programming. It was a whole lot of hillbilly shit. It was like reruns of Dukes of Hazzards and Andy Griffith's show. It was fucking, Southern Fried Wrestling, only it wasn't called Southern Fried Wrestling, but it might as well have been. Shit like Bassmasters. It was basically where hillbillies went to congregate back in the 90s. Before country music television came on the scene. Which basically put TNN out of business, kind of, sort of. But again, not technically, but in practical reality, yeah, sure. So it was a bunch of shit you weren't interested in. It was hillbilly programs. It appealed to Southerners, I guess, maybe. But, nobody else. And that wasn't strong enough to have a national presence. Now, country music television, CMT, was basically TNN, but with an emphasis on country lifestyle and also the country music, because it would play music videos and concerts and things like that, which TNN kind of sort of tried to do, but again, CMT did it better. CMT, if you don't know, is MTV for hillbillies. There you go. But it had a bit of a broader reach. So TNN did what you're supposed to do when your business is failing. It restructured and rebranded. TNN was reborn as Spike TV, and now you know what the fuck I'm talking about because you've seen Spike TV. Well, Spike TV also didn't last forever, because it too went the way of the dodo. Which it is no longer, to my understanding, in operation today. I can't really give TNN its props, because all it did was give us Spike TV, which was, rubbish, like The Man Show, or whatever the fuck it was called. And I just don't give a fuck. Cops, 24 Hours of Cops, which is the same thing that sunk G4, and god damn it, I get pissed off every time I think about what happened to G4. And then later, Rooster Teeth, but I don't even want to go down that road. Anyways, so, yeah. I watched, either intentionally or inadvertently through just flipping to the channels and stopping on what was on, a whole lot of TNT over the years. I skipped over the top of TNN and later Spike TV as fast as I could get to the next channel on the lineup. I never watched TNN. I knew about it. I'm familiar with it. I'm aware of it. I wasn't going to be caught dead watching that shit. And thank God nobody else was either, because that's why they went out of business. Good fucking riddance. If you didn't know, TNN was the origin story of Spike TV, now you do. But rest in piss, Spike TV? So there you are.